Hello and welcome back to my channel, everyone. Today I will be covering UFO sightings and alien encounters in the state of Idaho. Shout out to my subscriber, Randy Jolliffe8781, for picking out this week's state. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe, and comment, as it really helps my channel out and it means a lot to me. And if you want more UFO stories, paranormal encounters, and other strangeness, you can hit the pop-up on the top right corner for a full playlist. I also want to do a huge shout out and thank you to my friend Sunny Dionysus for making my new channel sprites. He is incredibly talented, and now I have a cute version of myself to appear in my videos, so thank you. So with all that out of the way, let's dive into it. Bright light seen, vanishes in area sky. From the Post-Register, July 23, 1970. An object that at first appeared to be a large star and then turned and showed red and green lights in the sky north of Idaho Falls Wednesday night was reported to the Bonneville County Sheriff's Office by C.W. Lewis of Idaho Falls. Lewis was quoted by the sheriff's office as saying he was passing the Osgood interchange on Interstate 15 when his family first spotted the bright light. The light then vanished in the east. Lewis was quoted on the report as saying, "A check with airport authorities by the sheriff's office indicated no airplanes in the area, but the object was also seen by persons at an aircraft rental firm," the report stated. Object's identity said no meteor. From the Times News, September 12, 1972. The meteor that flew over Twin Falls last month wasn't a meteor, according to the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization. It also wasn't a man-made object, the research group said in a statement today. As a result, the object, widely reported from Southern California to the northernmost part of the United States, has an identity unknown to the group. Alan Benz, Twin Falls, a local spokesman for the research group, said Tuesday the object was neither a meteor nor a man-made object. He said the conclusion was reached on the basis of several factors, including the object's behavior, and a statement from the North American Air Defense Command that no missiles re-entering satellites or other space vehicles were due to pass over this area at the time of the incident. Ben said the organization was listing the object as unknown. UFO seen for week at Horseshoe Bend. From the Idaho Statesman, February 2, 1971. The unidentified flying object reportedly sighted Sunday night by residents in Boise and Pocatello is nothing new to people in Horseshoe Bend. They've been watching the UFO for almost a week. Mrs. Joan Adams, Horseshoe Bend, said residents of that area first saw the UFO about 7:15 p.m. last Wednesday night. "We watched it for about an hour until it finally disappeared," she said Monday. "It was very large and bright. There were flashing red, blue, and clear lights, and we could definitely see the light rays. It positively was not a helicopter or airplane because it held the same position for more than an hour." Mrs. Adams said the UFO appeared again Thursday and Friday nights in approximately the same position, east or slightly southeast of Horseshoe Bend, although viewing was hampered by fog. On Saturday, she said, the UFO appeared in about the same position, then went straight up into the sky until we couldn't see it, then came back down and got larger, then would disappear again. It had a continually flashing light, she said. About 12 people were watching it. Viewers also used surveyors' transits to watch the UFO. Mrs. Adams said her husband, watching through a transit Thursday night, said the object appeared to be round and had a definite red light on the bottom, with blue, green, and white lights flashing around its circumference. Paul Kippy, a Boise man interested in UFOs, planned to drive to Horseshoe Bend Monday night to join area residents in watching for the hoped-for reappearance of whatever it was. Mysterious light seen on mountain. From the Priest River Times, November 25th, 1971. Tersa notations entered on a police log through the dark hours from 3:30 to 5:30 o'clock Monday morning tell a story of suspense and mystery as far-flung efforts were made to identify bright red lights visible in the sky north of Priest River. The log was kept by police officer Donald Nelson, whose beginning doubts as to the reliability of his own eyesight were relieved by corroborating testimony from Bonners Ferry. This early morning drama began with a report at 3:30 from Hank White of Priest River, who told Nelson that he had seen lighted objects in the sky as he drove toward town on Highway 57, just north of Linton's. He said the objects were bright red and moving around, with one appearing to be stationary on top of a mountain in the area northeast of Sandpoint. Nelson drove out on the Priest-like highway where he, too, observed a bright red light on top of a mountain. After watching it for a few minutes, he and White noted that it seemed to go up and down and then from side to side. Officer Nelson contacted Car 8 in Sandpoint to ask if the lights could be seen there. The reply was negative. He then drove to the Brooks place on the East Side Road for a better look. He said that after a few minutes, the light turned white, and then another bright red light appeared just north of the first one sighted. At this point, Nelson received a radio call from Patrolman Hutter at the State Patrol Port of Entry near Coeur d'Alene, who said they had contacted the airport and received a nothing on radar report. Both lights continued to remain visible, and at 4 a.m., Hutter advised that Fairchild Air Force Base was sending a plane to the area to investigate. He called back at 4:20 with the news that the plane had returned and that they were able to pick up nothing on radar. Nelson said, "We could still see both lights, the second fading in and out. The first had been stationary for about 30 minutes. Then, much to the relief of Officer Nelson, Hutter called in again, saying that a Bonners Ferry unit to the north had spotted both lights and had given the same description of them." At 5:30 a.m., Nelson contacted Hutter for more information, and was advised that a man at Bonners Ferry had set up a telescope and was watching the light object. Bonners Ferry reported that the light was quite a bit northeast of where originally thought to be, and that it definitely was bright red, and moving from one direction to another in a more or less easterly direction, moving about a mile at a time. They also said that there were no weather balloons or aircraft in that area. No further information is available at this time. Residents watch weekend UFOs. From the Idaho State Journal, February 1st, 1971. Sightings of several unidentified flying objects were reported during the weekend in the Pocatello area and elsewhere in the state. A report of an unidentified flying object hovering over Portneuf Hill about 7:05 p.m. Sunday sent a deputy from the Bancock County Sheriff's Office to the Martin Putnam home on Catsalamets Road. En route to the Putnam's residence, the deputy reported a bright light appeared to be shining in the southeast portion of the sky. No size or shape was given in the police report, and Idaho State University astronomers could not be reached this morning for comment. Harold Jacobson, meteorologist at the National Weather Service at the time of the sighting, disputed rumors the UFO was reported on the Civil Defense Circuit here. "I didn't hear a thing about it," he declared. In Boise, about 7:30 p.m. Sunday, several residents reported sighting a circular object with 4 flashing lights which they said darted around for several minutes before disappearing in the southeast sky in a trail of fire. Police and National Weather Service officials apparently could not confirm the Boise UFO sightings. That sighting, nearly due east, apparently was not Apollo 14, although it was in the right position. Officials said it occurred long after Apollo 14 had left the Earth's atmosphere. One astronomer from Boise was reported to have said the star Sirius, brightest in the heavens and located below the constellation Orion to the east, would have been prominent Sunday night. Weathermen indicated fog and atmospheric moisture might have played a part in the sightings. The sighting was the second in recent weeks of heavenly phenomena. The evening of January 20th, a giant fireball blazed across the eastern sky, beginning in the vicinity of the constellation Gemini in the southern sky and exploding about 25 degrees above the northern horizon. The flaming object, identified as a large meteorite, was seen from the Pocatello area to Bear Lake County. Time of the reported sightings was about 7:30 p.m. Fireball lit up skies in Inland Empire area. From the Kellogg News, June 20th, 1972. A big fireball whooshed across Inland Empire skies about 1:30 this morning and was seen by numerous residents from Mullen to Spokane. Art Jacobson, pioneer, North Fork River area rancher who has made a study of meteorites, said his cabin lit up like daylight at 1:32 this morning, and about 2 minutes later, he heard an explosion, which he surmised could have been caused by the fireball hitting the ground. Kellogg and Wallace residents saw and heard the phenomenon, and some calls of inquiry were received at police stations. One Kellogg resident informed the Evening News he saw the entire sky light up like daylight when he was driving near the Harrison interchange by Coeur d'Alene Lake. He thought it was an airplane flare, but was seen too wide an area to be that small an object. Skies were clear when the fireball came down, and there was no lightning activity at that time. Deputy Sheriff Vic Lees observed what he described as a large arc welder light that lit up the whole sky. The night shift gateman at Bunker Hill called the security office saying he thought the burning object was headed straight for him when he first saw it. Kellogg police saw the light as simply a flash that could have resembled lightning when they were driving on McKinley Avenue, and state patrolmen said they thought the whole sky was lit up by the fire. It was reported by some that a noise similar to a sonic boom was heard soon after the light appeared. However, no speculation was made about whether or not the two incidents were related. UFO or meteorite, Twin Falls officers can't find it. From the Twin Falls Times News, January 30th, 1975. The search for an unidentified flying object seen over Twin Falls earlier this morning ended without result. 4 on-duty policemen searched the southern section of the city after seeing a bright object arc across the sky and appear to land in the industrial section beyond Rock Creek. While no object could be found, the incident left the police officers who had witnessed the object subject to the razzing of their fellow lawmen. "Who put the sauce in the city's coffee?" asked one sheriff's deputy, and at the bottom of the notation on the city police blotter reporting the sighting, someone had written, "Confirmed by Little Green Men." Despite the jokes, the officers insisted the sighting was real. They were not alone. Truck drivers and other early risers reported seeing the bright object streak over Twin Falls. Nobody said it was a flying saucer, and there was no such thing as Little Green Men, City Patrolman Ron Robertson said today. "I believe it was a meteorite." Robertson said he first saw the object when it was about halfway across the sky over Twin Falls. "Hey, did you guys see that?" he asked over his car radio. The 3 other city officers on duty responded that they did indeed see the object. Robertson said the object was round and bright orange. He said it had a kind of bluish-green tail. Following the object across the sky, Robertson said he thought it landed south of town near Western Beverage Corporation. Robertson said he and the 3 other officers then went out and checked, but couldn't find anything. There was one moment of excitement, he said, when they spotted smoke coming from a field in the area. "I had my camera. I was going to take pictures of it," Robertson said. But the smoke turned out to be a steaming culvert, he added. Robertson said the object was large enough to see, and he estimated that it was about 500 feet above the ground. It moved fast, he said, too fast for a flare. He said the sighting occurred at almost exactly 5 a.m. Those idiots down at the station made a big deal out of it, he concluded. Formation zooms over skies, says Gooding-Men. From the Twin Falls Times-News, June 16, 1974. Nothing ever moved so fast from this earth, a former Gooding-Man said Saturday, commenting on a formation of 5 unidentified flying objects he and his father saw Thursday night. Estelle Butch Easterbrook, Portland, who is here visiting his father, Vern Easterbrook, said he has seen satellites many times and these were moving much faster. Father and son were sitting in their backyard when they spotted what he described as perfect formation. They zoomed from the eastern horizon across the sky westward in about 30 seconds and were gone. The younger Easterbrook said he never had seen anything move this fast in his life. "It was fantastic," he said. "I feel like it was something from another planet." Easterbrook said previously, when he had spotted satellites, they went in and out of the atmosphere, but this took off right straight across the sky. He estimated the speed at something like perhaps 35,000 to 40,000 miles per hour. The objects did not resemble planes or anything else Easterbrook has ever seen. He said he and his father, who is on the Gooding police force, often sit outside and watch the sky while they talk. The younger Easterbrook lives in Portland where he is a musician. Reports of the same phenomenon were received by several Twin Falls radio stations. Two report seeing 3 UFO flights over Shelley area. From the Idaho Falls Post-Register, September 7th, 1975. Lou Jonas of Shelley and Dave Sealander of New Sweden reported seeing 3 flights of unidentified flying objects Thursday night over the Shelley area. Jonas said both he and Sealander saw the 3 flights, the first one about 10:45 p.m., the next one about 10:55 p.m., and the third one about 11:06 p.m. They were a group of lights and moving in a very orderly fashion, Jonas said. The first group of about 10 were flying in a perfect triangle formation. The second time they came over, they were sort of in a waving line, and the third time they seemed to be in a cluster. Jonas said they looked like they were coming from the Big Dipper and headed southwest of Shelley. They were a white light, but weren't real bright, which indicates they were pretty far up. They were traveling faster than any plane I've ever seen. Sealander reported them to the FAA at the Idaho Falls Airport. UFOs reported in South Idaho. From the Morning Tribune, October 6, 1975. People reported seeing strange lights in the skies of South Idaho, and residents of several communities have turned in reports of unidentified flying objects. There were reports several nights last week from Albion, Rupert, Burley, and Elba. Officials who investigated said they thought most of the sightings resulted from a spectacular meteor shower. They said the skies were clear and the stars and planets unusually bright. A spokesman for the Burley Police Department said there were no reports Friday night when the skies were more overcast. Some of the descriptions didn't quite fit the heavenly bodies. Several residents of Elba gathered Friday to watch a mysterious light described as looking like a diamond in a woman's ring. One resident said 3 smaller, disc-shaped objects were observed near the larger light. The fast-moving lights could not be seen with binoculars. Observers west of Burley said they saw an object which appeared as a varied colored light. It was reported to have suddenly disappeared from sight. Similar reports also came from Rupert. Albion Valley residents reported seeing several lighted objects similar to others seen recently in the area. There has been speculation by some persons that UFOs are connected with recent mysterious cattle mutilations, but authorities say there is no evidence to support such speculation. Others have speculated that UFO enthusiasts have been involved in the cattle mutilations to gather support for their UFO beliefs, but there has been no evidence found to support that either. Woman spots heavy breathing UFO. From the Idaho State Journal, December 4th, 1975. A Pocatello woman reports sighting an unidentified flying object Monday night that emitted quick light flashes and sounded as if it was breathing. R.T. Hall contacted the Journal Wednesday and said she saw the peculiar UFO about 9:20 p.m. while talking on the telephone. She lives northeast of the Alameda and Yellowstone intersection. I would say it was taking in oxygen, using it, and blowing it off. It lit up as the oxygen was expelled and sounded like deep breathing, she said. It looked like the rays around a star, but would dim down with each puff. It was there and gone so suddenly, I didn't really have the time to get a look. Mrs. Hall estimates she saw the object for about 4 seconds, and its light was the size of a house. Each flash lasted about a second, and the object was sighted at about the height of a telephone pole, she said. It was following the railroad tracks behind my house, but it was definitely not a train, Mrs. Hall remarked. When the incident occurred, her husband had just gone to bed, the drapes were open and the lights were out inside the house, she said. Haley men report landing. From the Idaho Times News, October 21st, 1975. 2 Haley men on an evening stroll claim to have seen a spacecraft land less than 1/8 of a mile from them Monday night. Bob Ellinger and Don Beckrich Haley were walking 1/2 mile west of Haley about 10 p.m. Monday night when they both noticed a bright red light travel from the west horizon over Quigley Summit to the east horizon. According to voluntary statements filed with the Blaine County Sheriff's Office, the men readily admitted they had each drunk a few beers. The craft took less than a second to move from one horizon to the other, the men said. The 2 were frightened a minute later, according to the statements, when the craft came back from the eastern horizon and stopped overhead. Ellinger said the object was smaller than a helicopter. It was almond-shaped, he said, pointed at the ends and round at the middle. The UFO turned blue, according to Bedrick's statement, as it stopped over them. Ellinger said the light was bright enough for Bedrick to see his shadow. The lights on the craft went out suddenly, according to the 2 men, and the craft began to descend. Both men heard a hissing noise, much like air from a compressor, but with a lower pitch. As it reached the ground, Bedrick heard bushes and sagebrush cracking. According to his statement, then a small light came on where it was, and it looked like there was some movement in the light. We ran, then went back to town. Ellinger said the craft was only 1/8 of a mile from them when it landed. The two were frightened, he said, because of the recent cattle mutilations which he thinks are related to the strange flying crafts. The men immediately ran to the sheriff's office and gave their statements to the men on duty. Object makes believer of woman. From the Twin Falls Times-News, October 11th, 1976. Mrs. Oliver Molyneux did not believe in unidentified flying objects until early Sunday morning when she says she actually saw one. Awakened by indigestion about 2 a.m., Mrs. Molyneux sat in her kitchen as she has many times before and looked out her large patio doors at the stars. Then she saw something she had never seen in all the time she had looked out those doors. "You know, I'm still scared," she said Sunday morning. "My stomach is just turning flip-flops." One of the stars, larger and brighter than the others, suddenly began to move up and down and back and forth in the sky, she recalled. "I thought it was a plane at first, and then I realized it wasn't because it went up and down," she explained. "Then I realized there were no red lights on it either." Mrs. Molyneux's window faces north, and she is often able to see airplanes as they approach the Twin Falls Airport for landing. But this time, the lights did not behave as they would have if a plane was landing. She said she called the airport to see if any planes were landing or scheduled to land. The answer was no. "After it moved up and down, it began coming toward me and getting brighter," she related. "It was spraying off sparks like a firecracker or fireworks display." She said it was just like a very bright star. "No star throws off light like that one did and moves around like that one was doing," Mrs. Molyneux asserted. "I've never seen anything like that before and probably never will again." She said it was difficult to perceive the distance of the object, and it first appeared to be hovering over Highway 30 north of her home on Ridgeway. As it got closer, it would get a little bigger, maybe 8 to 10 inches across, she said. Then these white spears would come spreading out from it. It bothered my eyes to look at it, it was so bright. She watched the bizarre display for about an hour and did not awaken her husband, who was asleep in the other room. "Then I went back to bed and shook. I was scared so bad," she said. Mrs. Molyneux said she had never seen a UFO before Sunday morning and did not even believe in their existence. "I didn't believe in them UFOs before, but by dang, I do now," she asserted. Saucer seeing is believing. From the State Journal, October 8th, 1976. Milton Haveman, a respected salmon businessman, says that since September 28th, he has become a firm believer in flying saucers. It was that date, about 6 a.m., that he saw the unidentified flying object as he was traveling Idaho Highway 28 near Birch Creek north of Lone Pine. It was just breaking daylight, and the object came into view from the direction of the Grand Tetons. Within a matter of seconds, it had dropped close to the ground, then shot upward and out of sight near the Lost River Range, Haveman explained. It looked like it crossed over the Atomic Energy Commission site in the desert 25 miles away. It was hard to tell how big around or thick it was because of intense heat waves emanating from it. Haveman said he informed the FAA office in Idaho Falls that the object appeared to be 50 feet in diameter, 10 feet in height, and 2 feet high on the outside edge. It was built in the shape of a discus used in sports, flat underneath and concave on top. Its color was robin egg blue in the front half of the circle and faded to a real light blue in the rear. Toward the back end were tentacles or exhaust pipes. The tail end was just as long as the saucer part. The exhaust was cherry red, like metal real hot. I couldn't tell if it was part of the saucer, exhaust, or flames. The object was traveling in a counterclockwise motion. The heat waves were coming off in a circular motion. Haveman said he thought at first it might be a meteor, but said because of the way it came down, leveled out, then took off again, he doubts it. He said it appeared to be in a glide. Haveman said he wanted to make sure he wasn't seeing things, so caught up with a pickup in front of him on the highway. Philip Goodall and Bob Thomas, both of Salmon, were in the vehicle and said they had caught a glimpse of the object also, Haveman said. Haveman was referred by the FAA at Idaho Falls to the UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, which he talked with for 20 minutes. They asked me everything: how fast, how far away, how big, the color, which way it was traveling. They told me they had received reports of flying saucers that same day in Montana, Utah, Nevada, California, and now Idaho. Strange happenings going on in Wood Canyon area. From the Caribou County Sun, December 30th, 1976. Strange happenings have been reported up in Wood Canyon, approximately 3 miles east of Soda Springs. In the early hours on Sunday, December 19th, area law enforcement officials were involved in a search for what was reported as a possible downed aircraft in the vicinity of Wood Canyon. Various sightings had been made on what appeared to be an aircraft over the mountains above Wood Canyon. Idaho State Police Officer Dennis Abrams, Sheriff-elect Kelly Izett, Deputy Sheriff Herb Walters, and Deputy Sheriff Barry Snooks were all involved in the area at some time during the night. Izett was in his own private vehicle and was communicating with the others with a CB radio. He said he was at the top of Wood Canyon coming back down when Abrams, who was in front of him, came on the air with a report of an object that he couldn't identify off to the side of his vehicle. Apparently the object was stationary and then moved off to the west and north from Abrams' position. Izett reported that it was a clear night and no moon. Because of the position of the hill, Izett said he was unable to see Abrams' vehicle and the object. Another state police officer also observed and was reported to be tracking an object north of Soda Springs. A Soda Springs city police officer also said he saw something that looked similar to a shooting star about 11:30 Saturday night. It came across in a northerly direction, stopped momentarily, and then continued on. Rumors of a bomb found at the site were partially unfounded. A spokesman for the Idaho State Police in Pocatello said a very crude homemade bomb was found on the Wood Canyon Road, but not in the general vicinity of the sighting. He said it looked like a part of a car muffler and black powder had been used as the explosive. Abrams, who made the closest and most accurate sighting, has been out of the Soda Springs area and could not be reached at press time. Much of the information being passed around this area is rumor based on very little fact. The real fact remains that a trained law enforcement officer made a sighting at very close range of an object that could not and has not been identified. Other observances made that night by law officers and others may or may not have had anything to do with the incident in Wood Canyon. This may never have a logical or satisfactory answer. It will probably just be recorded as another sighting. It seems very difficult, though, to ignore the facts. "5C saucer-shaped object flying between Rockford and Worley." From the Gazette Record, January 6, 1977. A saucer-shaped object with a bright dome light was sighted by a St. Mary's woman and her 4 children last Thursday. They noticed a bright light as they were traveling between Worley and Rockford on their way home from Spokane. This was at 6:15 p.m., and it was already completely dark, the woman said. She thought it was a light on the top of a radio tower at first. Her children thought it was an airplane. Her 2 oldest were in the front seat with her, and the younger children were in the back seat. They pulled over and watched from their car as the object came toward them. It had a big dome light on top of a saucer-shaped object with 2 blinking lights on the rim of the saucer, she said. The object was very bright. The light on top was white, and the saucer seemed to give off a pale green light, she recalled. She was not sure of the size because it was difficult to say if the object was large or just close to them. When they had pulled over, the saucer seemed to be a long way off. It came up quickly without making any noise, she said. Seeing the object fly up to them frightened the group. The woman drove back onto the highway, heading toward Worley. The children said the object started heading toward Spokane. The woman stopped the car after a while to look back. It seemed to be heading along the mountains in the same direction we were traveling, and then it went out of sight. When they reached Worley, they could no longer see the bright light, although they saw about 8 blinking lights similar to those on the rim of the object they saw. One of my friends mentioned seeing similar blinking lights when she had come down from Petey Hill earlier in the evening, the woman said. The next morning, she called the Spokane Airport weather station where sightings of flying objects used to be reported. The personnel at the station gave her a Seattle number to call. Those in Seattle asked for drawings of what the group had seen, got a description, and said they might be contacted further. I have never believed in flying saucers, but I am sure we saw something, the woman said of the whole experience. The family involved did not want their name published because of possible harassment by phone. Floating over the valley. From the Lewiston Tribune, January 16, 1977. Harley Carman has UFOs on his mind, especially since he's sure he saw 2 unidentified flying objects over the Lewis-Clark Valley Saturday around 5 p.m. Clarkston police dispatchers and a Washington state patrolman took the time to scan the sky after receiving Carman's report. They said they saw 2 lights in the sky that moved slowly off to the south over Lewiston. An air traffic controller at the Lewiston-Nez Perce County Airport reported that his scanning efforts with binoculars turned up nothing, but fog and smoke over the valley cuts down visibility. He added he was not aware of any helicopter flights, but any copters may have been out of the Lewiston air control zone and would not have had to report their flights. Carman's UFOs looked at first like helicopters, he said, but the longer he watched them, the more convinced he was that they were extraterrestrial. The UFOs seemed to float over the Snake River. The tower-like structures with bright balls of orange flame at their tails made no sound and did not have blades. Carman said about 6 other persons watched the object from around 15th Street in Clarkston. After about 10 minutes, the objects moved off to the east, said Carman, of 1228 15th Street, Clarkson. They zigzagged in tandem into the distance. Possible UFO landing pad in Mud Lake Field. From the Post-Register, August 29, 1978. While no one has reported seeing or hearing anything unusual, Niall Wilding, a Mud Lake farmer, believes an unidentified flying object landed in his hayfield recently. When he went out to cut the opening swath around a field of hay on his farm north of the Mud Lake store, he noticed a large flattened area about 20 feet from the edge of the field. Checking it more closely, he found a 24 by 234 foot oval-shaped place where a heavy object had evidently rested. There were 4 circular indentations at the edges which appeared to have been made by legs or landing gear. There were no trails leading up or away from the flattened area, although the hay was at a stage of growth to show plainly any disturbance. There was no indication of any burning, but the object was heavy enough to cut off much of the hay against the ground, although there seemed to be no marks on the soil. The hay was all pressed in a northeasterly direction. Jefferson County Deputy Sheriff Terrell Hansen investigated the scene and took samples of the hay and soil to the Department of Energy site but was told they do not perform those types of tests. Hansen said while it is mysterious, there's no way to prove what object might have caused the strange flattened place. He said there is no proof it was a UFO. Wilding and his neighbors are still convinced it was caused by a very quiet and unspectacular UFO and would like to know more about it. Citizen recalls UFO. From the St. Paul, Minnesota Dispatch East, January 11th, 1979. I'm coming out of the closet, said Walter DeYoung. So are many others, he added. Before, we didn't want to talk about it. People seldom took us seriously. They giggled. But I don't care anymore. I'm talking. DeYoung of North St. Paul claims to have had a close encounter with an unidentified flying object. At the time, so did about 60 others, he recalled. But we didn't say much then. It was 1951, an uptight period, what with the Korean War, McCarthyism, and everything. The setting was Mountain Home Air Force Base near Boise, Idaho, on a quiet, crystal-clear summer night, shortly after sunset. I was part of a contingent of about 120 persons, mostly department heads in the Air Force, assigned to reactivate Mountain Home. It was to become a departure base for armed forces personnel going to Korea. That night, about half of our group was away, but that left 60. DeYoung was in the barracks resting on a bunk bed and reading a book. The book was The Age of Reason by Tom Paine, he said. That's funny, I remember that. But usually I can't even remember the name of the book I read last week. I remember a lot of things about that night, but I forgot a lot too, like the names of the rest of the guys. Not even the guy who came running into the barracks. He was a Mormon, I know, but his name, it just doesn't come to mind. He was yelling something about a UFO above the runway. I told him, that's just great, go have a ball. Of course, I thought it was a joke. In those days, I was 100% a non-believer when it came to UFOs, so I stayed in bed with my book. But it must have been 10 minutes later when he came running in again. Come on out, he said. You have got to see it to believe it. Well, I still thought somebody was pulling my leg. But then I heard them cranking up an old C-45, an 8-passenger aircraft. Most of us thought it was unsafe to fly, but it was the only plane on the base. So I figured something must be up. That got me outside. Apparently, I was the last guy to arrive on the scene. Everybody was there, gawking at a saucer-like object hovering 400 to 500 feet above the runway. It must have been 20 or 25 feet in diameter. We had never seen anything like it before. We didn't know what to make of it. Later, I learned that our radio operator tried to make contact with it. We also learned that there wasn't supposed to be any aircraft in the area. Meanwhile, the object remained stationary and continually changed colors. I can't remember the exact sequence of colors, DeYoung said, but I think it was a combination of red, blue, purple, and white. It was also close enough for us to see that it wasn't spinning. I tell you, it was mind-boggling. I've never been the same guy since then. We just waited there, expecting that it would land. We were mesmerized. Eventually, it got close enough for us to see portholes. Something was inside, but just what, I can't say. Maybe it was creatures. Maybe it was the backs of chairs. DeYoung said enough of the men had the presence of mind to get the C-45 aloft so they could get a closer look. It must have taken a half hour to get that crate airborne, he continued. For a while, we didn't think it would make it. It stalled near the end of the runway and had to start all over again. But finally, up it went. It circled around and moved in on the object from above. But then the object took off. It shot straight up, silently into the atmosphere at a fantastic rate of speed. We looked at it in awe until it was just the size of a pinhead. Initially, speculation at Mountain Home was that the UFO was really a new secret weapon, DeYoung said. We just hoped that it had been developed by the United States, not by Russia, he stated. Certainly, I wasn't thinking of it in terms of a UFO. Not then. But I started listening to people who had seen UFOs. Soon, I became a believer. Certainly, if someone on Earth had concocted something that moved around in the sky like this, we'd know about it by now. DeYoung also told of being puzzled by what happened at Mountain Home Air Base in the 2 to 3 weeks after the sighting. Those of us there that night were quickly reassigned all over creation, he explained. We had been living together in the same 1 or 2 barracks, but we got assigned to many different barracks, then to other bases. I ended up in New Mexico. It was as if some higher-ups didn't want us talking to each other about what happened. It seemed strange that some investigators didn't come in to question us. But we never did much talking amongst ourselves. Maybe it was because of the odd political climate. McCarthy was riding high. If you saw anything strange or odd, especially in the military service, you kept your mouth shut. After all, maybe it was a secret weapon, and the less said about it the better. That was the patriotic thing to do. But maybe subconsciously, we had been conditioned not to talk by some power or force that we can't even begin to understand. I have read book upon book about UFOs, partly to see if there's an account of what happened at Mountain Home. But I always draw a blank. There's nothing, as if nothing ever happened. DeYoung said he knows better. In recent years, he reported, I have been trying to obtain the names of personnel assigned to Mountain Home on that summer night. I'd like to have a reunion. Then we can talk about it. We can compare notes. But the Air Force isn't cooperating. The bureaucrats I talked to say it's too difficult to retrieve the names. Besides, they say that information isn't supposed to be given out. I wish I could remember even one name. That's what seems so strange. I can't even think of the name of the Mormon who came running into the barracks. I know a colonel was in charge of the base. He almost had a nervous breakdown that night. But his name? I can't remember it. I thought I had it written down once. I'm looking for it. The colonel was an older man then with gray hair, but maybe he's still alive. I'd like to talk to him. Several sightings of UFOs reported. From the San Diego, California Evening Tribune, March 17, 1980. The Idaho State Police reports an unusually high number of telephone calls from citizens reporting UFOs in recent days. Troopers said yesterday several Boise area residents reported seeing strange flying objects in the night sky Saturday night. Last week, Treasure Valley residents claimed they saw an unidentified glowing object, and several Sandpoint area residents reported what one man called a circular burning orb in the sky. I'm not sure what it was, says Dr. Paul King, who lives near Sandpoint and followed the UFO in his car. I saw the ball of fire, he said. I followed it until it dipped into the trees. I thought it might have been a flare, but I couldn't find it, and now I don't know what it was. Dr. Roger Schubert, a Sandpoint resident, also watched the object for some time after his daughter spotted a ball of fire in the sky. He said the object appeared to be 3 to 5 miles away. In California, Sacramento Valley authorities reported a high number of alleged UFO sightings yesterday, but the Office of Emergency Services offered an explanation. It is said that Venus was sitting unusually low on the horizon, giving the impression of a mysterious flying object. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it. Let me know in the comments below what state you'd like to see me cover next. If you have your own scary story or close encounter to share, you can either send it in the comments, post on my subreddit, r/ihaveaspookystory, or send it to my Gmail, pinkpossiblystories@gmail.com. Maybe your story will be in a future video. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the shadows bite.